The Speed Coaching Series is really a unique opportunity for SMEs to connect with industry leaders in South Africa, entrepreneurs that have been there and done it all. We really think that this is an opportunity for SMEs to learn, engage, and find some key nuggets that can help them in their own growth journey.
The goal of the series is to bring together SMEs and top entrepreneurs from various industries to engage together in an interactive session of mentoring and coaching. The kind of challenges that SMEs face in South Africa is really about survival and sustainability. Many SMEs struggle to get the funding for working capital, but also funding to grow.
The other aspect is obviously access to market and being more competitive in terms of their own growth. But if we take a step back and just look at the basics, the fundamentals is how do we get companies to at least have sustainable companies in terms of their finances, their cash flows, and if you get the fundamentals right, the rest are then building blocks in terms of their growth story.
What I hope this series will aim to achieve is that in the future or a year or so, we'll see SMEs achieve their growth objective, grow their businesses to such an extent they increase the number of people they employ, and also play quite a prominent role in the economy of the country.
The Speed Coaching Series brings together industry experts and entrepreneurs that have been there and done that. And the benefit for SMEs that participate in this series is really that they, one, get to interact with these experts directly and ask them the questions that they need to know in terms of growing their own businesses. But more than that, we've focused the topics on subjects that SMEs really want to know about. Everything from how to sustainably drive cash flow, manage their finances.
The series will cover a variety of topics, what the SMEs need from the mentors. So it could go from marketing, how to actually grow your business, how to manage your business financially, looking at operational advice, but also leadership advice for those entrepreneurs who are planning to grow their businesses. We have a marketing plan in place to encourage SMEs to participate. All you have to do is to register for free, and then the session will be live streamed on YouTube. Thereafter, you'll have access to watch it.
This is an amazing opportunity for SMEs, so we encourage each and every SME in South Africa to join us. The session is free, they can register online and take full advantage of the opportunity to connect with amazing industry experts and leaders and hopefully learn a thing or two for their own business growth. Hello entrepreneurs, and welcome back to another season of SME Speed Coaching with the JSE. I'm Cleola Kunena, your head of SME development, and I'm really excited for us to start and kick off another season. This series is really something that you're going to enjoy. We dealt with in our previous season with everything from marketing to branding your business and how to really establish a purpose of your business. And now we're going to deal with the more fundamental things that you get worried about late at night or early morning, and this is your finances. We kick off this season with your financial planning and capital raising, and today we have two seasoned entrepreneurs who are going to tell us everything about how to plan your business, the finances of your business in 101. And I'd like to welcome Andile Khumalo and Epileng Mkari today with us. Andile, let's kick off with you. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us about your illustrious career?
Illustrious, Cleola. Thank you so much for having me. Good day to everybody, because I guess this could be happening at any time around the world.
Indeed.
That's the beauty that streaming gives you, I guess. My name is Andile, and of course, I've been an entrepreneur most of my life. I trained as an accountant, so I'm a CA by profession. I've worked for an investment bank, and then thereafter, I was pretty much an entrepreneur, most of which actually I spent with Epileng's husband, building an investment business in the media space. And now I continue to do that for my little portfolio. And one of the companies in our portfolio is a company called I'm an Entrepreneur that actually spends a lot of time supporting small business owners build and grow their businesses. So anything that involves SMEs, you can count me in. So thanks for having me.
No, thank you. And I remember years ago, without giving away my age, when you were here at the JSE studio, right?
Yeah.
And time has really flown and you've done phenomenally well. I do follow I'm an Entrepreneur and very excited about the work that you guys are doing. So well done and really very, very excited to have you today and hope you can share your insights, your knowledge, and everything that you've learned as an entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
And that's the point, right? That
Absolutely.
we learn, we choose our hard rocks, and then we share what we've learned so that other people can really benefit from it. Epileng, you are very well known. I am one of the people that truly admire you and everything that you've done. Please tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Cleola. Thanks for having me. My name is Ipileng Mkari, so I am CEO of a company called Mutsing Investment Holdings. It's a business that started about 2 decades ago, really in small business that started as a CCTV service provider and supplier. We vertically integrated the business to become an integrated services group, specifically in property and in the investment space around property. And we're very, very excited about our recent expansion into more of the infrastructure and engineering space. So, it's a business that I've loved. It's all I've ever done, straight after university. And it has been a business that I have truly been proud of. And at the same time where I've really seen lots of scars on my back. And so it's really taught me everything that I know about entrepreneurship, building a business, and I suppose building a business as a woman in this country as well. Thank you.
The JSE offers SMEs the opportunity to fast-track their business potential and bridge the funding gap to grow. We aim to harness the potential of our SME sector and provide insights and network building for the incubation, acceleration, and capital raising stages of private companies in South Africa. Our priority is to nurture your business prosperity.
We as a company really are very passionate about growing the economy, supporting the people of South Africa, whether it's employment creation, whether it's being more competitive, and of course attracting more investment into the country. And a big part of that is, having the new Naspers, the new Old Mutuals of the future. And that can only happen through significant support. So that was the inspiration, right? We are doing more than just the acceleration program. We're driving a lot of initiatives in terms of SME development.
Find out more about our SME initiatives at www.jse.co.za/SME.
Let's kick off with a few questions, and I'll start with you. Especially because you just mentioned that you have a lot of scars on your back.
I do, Cleola. Too many to count.
Too many to count. What are those, if you had to say 3 key things that you think every entrepreneur needs to learn, whether they're just starting out or whether they've been on that journey for a few years, in terms of their financial sustainability? I always think about finances, and I ask myself the question, I've also been an entrepreneur, and I say, will I be sustainable? Will I still be around in a few years' time? And what are those things, those nuggets that you can share that you've learned in terms of financial sustainability?
One of the first lessons that my first bookkeeper ever taught me, who then became our auditor, was that treat yourself as an employee in the business all the time. You are not the business, you are employed by the business. And that was a very, very important and early lesson for me, particularly in the context of how you spend your money as an entrepreneur, having established a business. And his context was, Ipileng, you can't simply go and draw money from the bank account. And the bank account can't be your account, it has to be a business account. So these are fundamental things that we take for granted. I certainly did at my age of 23 at the time. And I think it teaches you discipline right from the get-go in terms of your business. Financial management of a business is about discipline. The second key thing for me is cash is king. So it's a very, very tough world out there. And, beginning to understand how to manage the finances of a business or how to make it sustainable is really around managing cash and cash flow. So we talk budgets, we talk audits, we talk all these wonderful forecasts, but actually cash is king. Having cash in the bank, collecting and paying your debts is critical. You know, if you just think about the bottom line of a business, profit is really vanity. But if you don't have cash, you don't actually have a business that's actually running and able to meet its obligations. And you know, I suppose, you know, the last comment I would make is to say that in everything that you're doing, particularly as a business, when you start off, one of the things I certainly didn't think about early enough in one of our first ventures was understanding what your break-even point is. So, you know, you walk into a business, there's a lot of sexiness around starting a business, and it's not a sexy environment at all. And so the financial management and planning of a business is actually understanding, what am I doing? At what point am I actually making money? First of all, just breaking even. And then at what point am I actually making a profit? Because obviously you can live in the other side of break even, which is a loss consistently, but still be running a business. But, you know, what's the benefit? What's the gain? So I think, you know, there are hard lessons to be learned along the way, and those would be my top 3.
Definitely, Ipileng. I mean, when I think of 2020, so many businesses closed down. And if you look at the statistics and what they're saying, cash was the biggest reason, right?
Yeah.
Not managing their cash, not understanding how much cash they have and how that's going to sustain them.
Yeah.
So, you know, all these lessons are really, really critical. And you know, thank you for sharing that. And I agree. And if we want businesses to last beyond the 1,000 days and grow into, you know, the future large enterprises of our country, we need to help them with these fundamentals. Andile, I'll move over to you. What were your top 3 lessons in all these years of being an entrepreneur?
They're not going to be much different to what Ipileng has already mentioned, because when you've built a business over 20 years, like Ipileng has, the numbers can be different, but the lessons are similar. So she's 100% correct, especially on the issue of cash. I cannot stress that more. That's probably, if I were to pick 1 instead of 3, that'd probably be top of my list.
Absolutely.
I often say that, you know, cash is to a business what oxygen is to a human.
Literally.
You will die without it. You can even have profit. You can have the greatest opportunities to make money. You can have a contract. You know, people go and celebrate contracts. All means nothing until you've delivered the service, you've sent the invoice, and you got the cash in.
Absolutely.
And very often, you know, that's why a lot of businesses struggle. If indeed the key elements of the commercial opportunity are there earlier on, the thing that leads to business failure is often cash flow. And I want to go back to the key principles of the business, because I often find many small businesses that start out don't spend enough time thinking through the commercial opportunity.
Okay.
Right? So very often people start businesses because they're passionate about something, or they love something, or it stimulates them. That's okay. It doesn't mean it's going to be a good business. You know, if you love something, maybe make it a hobby. Make it the thing you enjoy doing. But don't expect to make money from it just because you love it. The thing you'll make money from is a thing where there is an actual commercial opportunity.
Sure.
Someone out there wants to buy this water from me. I have someone else who can sell it to me at a certain price, and I can therefore go on and sell it to my customer at a margin. That's a commercial opportunity. That's what I mean by a commercial opportunity. So your business won't survive much if the commercial opportunity was poor. But even if the commercial opportunity was there, if you don't have the cash flow to sustain the timing differences that happen between when the money is needed to buy the water and when the customer eventually pays you for the water, then you're not going to have a business, because you got to finance that, right?
Sure.
So I would say, number 1, definitely cash. Number 2, which is linked to number 1, is that the commercial opportunity must be there. And then I would say, thirdly, strategy. You know, when you start out and you're just surviving, you don't spend enough time thinking about strategy because you're just doing whatever needs to be done. You know, that's why the unfortunate term of tenderpreneurs comes up. Those are people that go from contract to contract. Now, you can be a tenderpreneur without tenders. Even in the private sector, you can be a tenderpreneur. And that basically means you have an operation where you're just getting one order after another, you know? So I'm just doing this for the JSE today, tomorrow I'm doing this for a bank.
Yes.
I'm a contract by contract guy. My business ends the day my contracts die, right? So that doesn't mean, that means I haven't really thought through, how do I build something of value? So I would say that the third thing I have learned is the importance to have a clear strategy. And a clear strategy often means you have to say no to certain contracts. So remember, if I'm just a contracts guy, I take everything, right? As long as I can make a margin. I'm cutting grass, I'm delivering eggs, I'm building a wall, I'm doing whatever needs to be done. And all this stuff, by the way, I'm outsourcing, right? Because I don't really do it, but I have access to the contract. So I'm getting people to do all the stuff. But I'm not really building a business.
Yes.
But if you have a strategy of building a business, you may have to say no to certain things. You might have to say, I'm going to be the best egg supplier in South Africa, which means my strategy is to be the best egg supplier to everybody. So I'm not going to build a wall. I'm not going to cut the grass. I'm only going to do eggs. Then maybe I'll buy a little land and just have my own chickens and I'll start laying my own eggs. And then after that, I'll buy maybe my neighbor's one and so forth and so on. Maybe who knows, I'll have a brand one day that you'll find in a supermarket. That builds you a business. So, and I think that's something you miss, especially when you're smaller. Because all that's important for you when you're small is survival. So you'll do whatever you need to do to live. And so I would say that's probably the three most important lessons I've learned. There's got to be a commercial opportunity. You must find a way to cash flow it. And you must have a bigger plan. Otherwise, you just hand to mouth. That's what you are.
And that is critical. That is very critical. You know, often it's said, you know, if you want to go into business, go and what are you passionate about? You know, start a business in terms of what you love to do, or what problem are you solving, or supply and demand. But it's everything. You know, you can be passionate, but there may not be an opportunity,
Exactly.
as you said. You can find a problem, but there may not really be demand for
Exactly.
you to solve that problem.
Exactly.
So you have to really do the homework and apply your mind. And even if you start something, how do you continue it? So absolutely agree.
And clearly you're right, it is everything.
Yes.
I mean, even the passion is important,
Yes.
but it's not the only thing.
It's
To your
not.
point, right? The commercial opportunity is important, but it's also about, I mean, I can come across a commercial opportunity, I don't know, I can't even think of anything, where there's clearly money to be made. Like, I don't know, maybe mining, like, I don't know, exploring gold. That doesn't mean I'm the person to do it. I mean, what's going to make me wake up at night and drive however many hours to go and explore some piece of land and do a geology report and whatever it is that mine people do? It's just not what Andile is passionate about. So there you go, there's a commercial opportunity. But it also needs some passion. It also needs somebody who loves that thing, who has the skill for it, and so you hit the nail on the head. It's all those things. The problem is that I guess when we talk about building businesses, we often focus on one or two. In truth, it's a bit of a cocktail of those things.
Yes. No, absolutely
Definitely is.
agreed. Definitely. Let's kick off with a few questions, right? Ipileng, I'll start with you. You know, when you started your journey and we talk about financial planning, you know, the 101 of financial planning, people say, you know, do financial modeling, do all of those things. And some people are like, what is financial modeling? What are the fundamentals for you in terms of financial planning that helped you in your journey and held you in good stead? And what are some of the key considerations for you know, somebody with a startup saying, how do I really plan this out? And Andile spoke of the commercial opportunity. Are these the things that did you look at? How do you actually do that financial planning?
It's absolutely fundamental. I think the commercial opportunity is it's like it's the beginning. You know, there can't be a business. Hence, I talked about the sexiness of business. There can't be something that looks exciting because you see somebody's outcome when you haven't understood what has gone into the science. What is that commercial opportunity? But I think, Cleola, you know, there are so many conversations. Certainly, when I started business, I can assure you know, your audience that I never had a financial plan. I had a business plan.
Okay.
And I think part of that was around knowing that there was this demand and supply question that I wanted to answer in CCTV, but I hadn't gone to the depths of looking at a financial plan.
Okay.
And I cannot stress enough how important it is, as I sit here 20 odd years later, to have a business plan, but a financial plan. So a financial plan for me doesn't have to be a financial model. I mean, that's a very detailed document that has all sorts of assumptions and everything, but a budget still has assumptions, right? A plan that is very clearly around what is my starting point, what is my target, what is the commercial opportunity, what's my target, what are my price points. You have to have done some research around that particular product or service that you want to provide. You have to understand the competitor environment. You have to understand a little bit of what it is that you want to do. In fact, a lot of it, not a little bit. And then you've got to be able to translate that into two documents, in my view.
Okay.
What Andile spoke about really speaks to the business plan in my mind, which is the strategy, You know, what competitor analysis have we done? What's the environmental analysis? Why do we want to do this? You know, where is the supply and demand coming from, and how are we going to respond to it? That can be very easily translated into a budget, into a financial document that tells you, and I'm not talking about a budget that looks at 1 year, that's maybe 3 to 5 year kind of forecast that says, this is what we want to do, translated from business into a document that now speaks numbers. We're starting off with this target, but by year X, we've reached this kind of outcome. We've increased our volumes, we've increased our service, we've increased our reach, whatever the service or product may be. And so there is a difference between a financial plan and a budget. And I think what becomes quite important in understanding this budget and this planning is, you know, a lot of the time we are consumed by, I need funding, I need finance. And I find that many a time, businesses have not fully understood their business to understand whether they are able to actually fund this particular business just by starting in a particular way. And so understanding your business and your financial plan and how you start and these targets that you want to achieve, realistic targets that you want to achieve, becomes so important. So how am I going to capitalize the business? Do I have investors who are going to come in? An investor could be a parent, could be a friend, doesn't have to be some major investor. Am I going to need to borrow money? What is my break-even point? At what point am I making money? You know, these are the critical questions that one has to be able to answer. So a financial plan, I'm afraid many of us don't put enough time into actually articulating it, writing it down, or even saying, as a small business owner, I may not know where to start, because that was your question. It can become quite overwhelming, but I'm prepared to invest in somebody who can help me put it together. Because I know what my business is, I know what the business plan is, and I'm able to articulate that into a clear document that has numbers and that can be managed and tracked. And I think, Cleola, once we begin to understand a big part of what Andile and I are talking about around this budget planning and the cash flow element, you know, it's amazing, and it's important as entrepreneurs to share these stories. That one of the businesses we invested in and started from scratch was a security business. It bled every year. Every year we lost money. It was just a loss-making business until our chairman sat us down and said, I see no reason as to why we're in this business. And it was about 3 years in. And the reason we hung on to it is because we believed it could grow. We were very vain, the vanity around, but you know, the business has got big numbers, there's a great turnover. And so beginning to understand the language of cash flow, turnover, profit. What are these things? What are the drivers of a business? No business survives on turnover, no business survives on profit. Businesses survive on cash. And Andile couldn't be more accurate when he talks about, if you don't have it, you slowly die. You literally will not survive because you cannot meet your obligations. So in order for businesses to be a going concern, to be a business that can continue into the following year, there's got to be that management of cash. And you can't do that if you don't have a budget, if you don't have a plan.
That's true. That's very true. And, you know, you don't want to put out in all that years of work and, you know, passion and money, your own money, and then find at the end that, oh my gosh, this didn't even work.
Often you have to lose it to know it. Often you have to, and many of us have, and those are the scars on my back. So, you know, often you have to walk through that door, come out of it, you've seen not a cent from this business, you've not been able to meet the obligations, or you've just been able to meet month on month, but at the end of it, you know, with all that sweat and tears, what was it worth? You know, what was the effort all about? And so I think it comes down to really being able to make those right decisions up front. Businesses are not sexy. Businesses are hard. Managing businesses is absolutely treacherous. And so you need to be up for it, but you need to understand your space so well in order to be able to make the most of it and understand all these other intricacies that go with it.
And you said such a critical word, you know, you need to understand the language. You know, the language of business, the language of finance, you know, financial literacy, personal financial literacy and business financial literacy is a big part of it.
Absolutely.
So I'm like, as I'm listening to you, I'm like, well, what are those things? What is the difference?
Yeah.
And Andela, I'm going to turn to you and say, when you start doing that financial planning and people think, oh no, it's my business plan and I'm just going to ask and answer all these questions. But really, what are the fundamental differences? And you come from an accounting background as well. And that financial thinking and planning and questions that you need to start answering for yourself and asking yourself, the detailed, just diligence. I use the word diligence because it does take a lot of diligence, doesn't it? To really think about it. I mean, when I just think of my own personal budget, I sometimes have some surprises where I'm like, whoa.
Only sometimes?
Let's say sometimes. I'm like, oh my gosh, did I spend so much at a restaurant?
Yeah.
So what are those questions that you need to start asking yourself to really hone in on a financial plan for your business versus a business plan?
So I must tell you, I had to go through a realization that was a little depressing when it finally dawned on me. So because I've been in finance all my life, school, university, articles, banking, all I know is income statement and balance sheet and cash flow statement. I know the stuff. You assume that business people, especially the ones that to you, quote unquote, look successful, know this stuff. It blows my mind how the most basic financial concepts, many SMEs are running around, running businesses there, but they don't understand. They just don't. And it's easy for me to take it for granted because I'm trained as such. So diligence is the word, Cleola. You hit the nail on the head. Nowadays we live in a connected world. There's YouTube videos for everything. You don't need to go and register for a diploma in accounting or a BCom degree. You can teach yourself this stuff on Google. Just dedicate the time to go, let me learn these terms. And why must you? Because finance is the language of business.
Yes.
Finance is the language of business. Think about going to a country where you don't understand the language, China. Now, if you've ever been to China, you will know that even the street signs are in Mandarin. Everything, nobody speaks English. Google Translate becomes your best friend for the week you are there. The point I'm making is it's hard to communicate anything if you don't understand the language. Business doesn't understand any other language. So the basics you need to understand. You need to be able to read an income statement. You need to at least know what it is. You must know there's a thing called revenue.
Yes.
And you must know what that means. You must know it doesn't include VAT, because that's not your money. That's SARS money. So if you invoice 100 Rand, you add 15 Rand VAT, and the invoice total is 115, and your customer pays you 115. 100 goes to the business. The 15 Rand goes to Minister Kondondwan. That's his money, it's not yours. So that is an important thing to understand. You'd be surprised how many people don't. I mean, there's a trick I used to do, but again, because I'm trained in this stuff, in my first business, and in fact, I think some of the operations still do it, they actually take the VAT out of the revenue. So they create a new bank account. So all clients pay to one account, and they create a new bank account. They even call it the VAT account, where for every invoice, they just take the VAT and put it into a separate account. And they try to survive with only the 100 Rand in my example. Because they know that the 15 Rand, after you take off the VAT input, must now go to SARS. So you know what that does? It helps the business never miss its VAT payments. Because there's always money for VAT. And as a rule, you do not take money from the VAT account. You only do so at the end of the year because remember, you could have inputs that the ultimate kind of outcome is that you have extra money because it's set off against the input VAT. Point I'm making though is that's just a simple principle. Income less expenses is profit.
Yes.
Profit doesn't mean cash. How many people think profit means cash? How many people think cash in the bank means profit in their bank account? And that's why you get the guy who buys the X5 within a few weeks, right? Because it hasn't registered to him that, no, before I think of profit, I must first pay my suppliers. Because for me to build this road, I needed to buy the tar, I needed to get the employees, I needed to rent the grader. All these people I must first pay. Then I have profit. But hold on, profit is just a number. I must first collect the money.
Correct.
Right? From the customer. But now, hold on, I may need to pay my labor because I pay them every week.
Yes.
Friday is payday for wages. The guy who's renting me the grader, I have to pay him every week or every month. That doesn't mean that my customer, who I'm building the road for, call it Department of Public Works, is going to pay me every week or every month. They may pay me in 3 months, which means I'm gonna have a shortfall of cash. I better solve this because I know the money's coming, but I still have to pay wages. I can't tell my employees to wait 3 months to get paid a salary, right?
Absolutely.
So those basics are financial concepts that if you don't have them, if you didn't have, we're not lucky enough to have studied accounting or been exposed to it in a classroom or in a lecture hall, just teach yourself online. There are enough courses that can teach you the stuff and be at least conversant. Because it will be required when you're growing your business and you now need to go and raise capital. And Ipileng touched on it. We're so fixated about funding. In my view, the only time you should care about funding is when you have the commercial opportunity and all you need is cash flow funding of it. What do I mean by that? I mean, if I need to buy a truck, I must have the contract of trucking. And maybe I don't need to buy a truck. Maybe I can just start by leasing one because I only have one contract. Why am I buying a truck? So why am I waiting for capital to start my trucking business? But some may argue, well, for you to get the trucking contract, you must have a truck. No, you don't. You don't have to. You can go lease a truck and do the project. And then you do that a few times, and then you make enough money. Maybe then you buy your own trucks. But you don't have to have all the capital up front to start a business.
Yes.
And the only time you should be needing capital, Cleola, is to fund the cash flow shortfall.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which means that there must first be a real opportunity. I must have the opportunity to supply the water. Then I can go to my banker or my family members and go, hey guys, the JSE asked for this water, it's cost me 100,000 to buy it. They're going to pay me 120,000. Won't you borrow me 100,000? I'll go buy the water. I'll deliver to the JSE. They pay me 120. I keep my 20. I pay you 100,000. Oh, you want some interest? Maybe I pay you 100,000 plus 5,000 because you lent me the money. So now I've made 15. My cost of capital was 5,000 and I had a loan of 100. But all this doesn't work if I don't have the commercial opportunity of supplying the water to the JSE. Do you understand? We always start with the capital. I need 100,000 to start my water supply business. No, you don't. You need an opportunity to start your water supply business. And I find that the more I speak to entrepreneurs and would-be SMEs, we're starting with the wrong thing. And that for me is the business plan that Ipileng's talking about. You gotta have the plan, the business plan, which means the commercial opportunity.
Yes.
The financial planning is just a function of that.
Yes.
But we seem to be so fixated, we say, I can't do anything unless I have funding. No, I'm waiting for funding. No, why are you waiting for funding? Hosa.
I have to pick up on that comment because it's such a critical one. And you know, it's often best described as well in the lived experience.
Okay.
My first ever, with my then business partner, engagement with an investor, even before, you know, starting up a fully fledged Mutzing Investment Holdings business, I was running the CCTV business, and we were fixated on funding. I mean, those days in the early 90s, late 90s, 1998, 99, BE was about leveraging deals, leveraging finance against listed entities, many of which were obviously JSE entities, and guys having these massive transactions and bankers making great fees. And we believed and we assumed that that's actually business. You know, that was what we needed to do. So we went around looking for money. We had nothing. We had no business to speak of, no track record. And one of the first guys we met was a guy who ran a capital business. And he said to us, I'm not giving you a cent. Go do it. Just go and do the business. Go start. Just do it. There's no point in giving you any money to start a business. And I think that's exactly what Andile speaks to. So being able to understand that you have a skill, an ability, a contract, supply and demand that you've kind of focused on a service, a solution to something that you now actually can take to Cleola and say, hey, this is something. And she says, fantastic, I love it. I want to contract with you. That's the starting. And being able to fund that 30 days, because, you know, look, we live in that cycle, right? Okay. So being able to fund that piece in that period of time and then getting paid on time, which is another issue that I think many service SMEs are bedeviled with. And many businesses, not just SMEs, large businesses are bedeviled with. So the issue is you've now provided the service, now you need payment on time, and often it doesn't come on time these days. You can wait 10 years before being paid, 3 months, 3 years. What do you do? And it's, you know, the issue for me is I don't believe that the critical issue, I agree with Andile on funding, is you do not need funding to start a business. What you need is to start the business.
Yes.
And you need the opportunity. And then you begin to say, right, now I need to fund whatever else I need to fund in this business, cash flow, CapEx, I need equipment, I need whatever else that I need to get the business going to a certain point. We can't take away, though, the issue around timing, debtors and creditors, managing that relationship. And unfortunately, we do live in a country where if you have many SMEs who rely on government, right? And who rely on the cycle of payment that is somewhat consistent.
Yes.
And when cycles of payment become inconsistent, it can throw many businesses out. And so the cash flow game becomes one of the most critical ones. So often what I say to business people as well is, in your financial management plan, have a line item in your budget that is contingency, not just the VAT account. I take money away and I put it aside for whatever else. It's not, if I can, right? So I've got this buffer in my revenue that I'm receiving. What am I going to do with that buffer? Am I going to now say, oh, that's a lovely thing just to take out as an owner? Or am I going to say, actually, there's a contingency that I've put aside and it's a line item in our budget, right? We keep it consistent so that when in fact customer 3 doesn't pay us on time, we're not losing our hair. We're not suddenly unable to pay the basic things that need to be done. It's scary how that can turn very quickly. And it's a reality in business.
That really is a daunting.
It is daunting.
Very daunting. And Ipileng, I'm going to touch on something that you spoke about. You know, when is the right time to do certain things, whether it's buying more equipment, etc. And some of the strategies that you look at, and I'm going to go into pricing strategy just now, but I want to ask you specifically, like people start employing, as soon as I have enough money, I start employing people. I start doing, and there's certain commitments that you put yourself into that is very hard to backtrack, you know, once you go down that route. In terms of that strategy, that cash flow strategy, what are some of the considerations before you make these, you know,
long-term
big long-term commitments?
I think great question. So one of the things that I think any SME needs to understand in their budgeting and their planning, right, is that let's assume that you now have a contract, you have something, because now we're starting the business and you now have put in place this budget of yours. There are fixed costs and there are variable costs.
Yes.
I think that one of the challenges we have in any business, it doesn't matter whether in South Africa, you are in Namibia, or you're in somewhere out there, Nevada, you have to be able to distinguish between the fixed costs that you really need to fix, that you have to commit to. And I think post-COVID, we've learned a lot around that. There are ways in which businesses that are starting up today with contracts on hand can begin to question, do I actually need to go and take up office space, for instance? Do I actually need to employ Ipileng on a full-time basis with all the related costs that we know in South Africa go with full-time employment? Once I take on Ipileng, there are all sorts of labor-related things that are linked to that that I must commit to. I cannot not commit to them. Would it be easier if I contracted with Ipileng on a consultancy basis? Until such time as I get to a point where I see that, hang on, we're moving smoothly. So I think there are ways in which, you know, strictly speaking, Cleola, 20 years ago, I would have looked at a budget and said, got to get office space, I've got to be visible, got to have 10 people in the office, got to have this, got to have a receptionist. I think today we are able to, without taking away from any kind of success factor, you are able to manage and understand the relationship between your fixed and variable costs. And ultimately, without also denying yourself the opportunity to present a really brilliant business out there. It does not mean that if your business relies on a team of salespeople that work for you 3 times a week on a commission basis, that actually that impacts the brand and how it's presented out there. How it's presented out there and how you deliver and how you manage the relationships and these costs, these input costs that are so important, is a function of how brilliant you are in business and the relationship you have with these people and how you deliver. So for me, understanding that and being able to really tweak your business to suit what you have on hand. You know, a bird in hand is better than 2 in the bush. What you have here is critical. Understand it, work with it. And so I look at businesses across the globe and even in our own stable and our portfolio where we all have had to say, okay, actually, let's focus on how we manage that relationship between fixed and variable costs. The one thing you can't do in a business is just strip everything out and say we've got to contain all costs and everything must go. Then you don't have, you've got to have something to run a business, right? So there is a relationship between these two things, Cleola, and I think it's being smart about how we go about making those decisions. I'm finding also a lot more that, you look at the culture of, certainly in some businesses, not all, the culture of how you can engage and contract people. Many, many young people actually don't want one single contract or one single employment contract, right? They're hustling on 10 different things.
Yes.
And so them spending time with you, they'll be hustling at 2 a.m, doing whatever they need to do. It's output driven. So if we understand what's happening in the market and are able to connect to it and make it work for our businesses, I think that's the success story that makes a lot of businesses, when you don't understand them, really fly, because they're not doing what everyone else is doing.
Absolutely.
They're doing what works for them.
Exactly.
And just to add on the variable and fixed costs discussion, the trick is to try and make as many of your costs more variable and as little as possible fixed. And if you're watching this right now, you are in luck, because exactly as Ipileng says, the world has now moved into most everything as a service. Gone are the days where everything was a big capex. I mean, look at something simple as storage of electronic records, email, backup, document storage. We used to buy mainframes just 10 years ago. That's not a long time ago. So you walk into any company, there was a whole server room with lights and little green and blue lights flashing. And the server is down, and some guy comes up with a big dick and walks out and then comes and installs it, and you can't get emails for the day. No one does that.
No.
We're all using a Microsoft or a Google or one of those things. We pay a monthly installment, and they've got mainframes somewhere in Nevada, I'm sure in some desert
Somewhere.
I don't know. But do you understand? So you don't need that.
Yes.
Properties, offices. The model is there for us to see how many companies have done well doing offices as a service, right? You pay just for the desks you use. You can even pay per hour.
Absolutely.
All right? The phone line can be answered in your company name. There's technology that does that.
Exactly.
People, exactly as Ipileng says, you don't have to have a full-time accountant. Why? There's tons of accountants now who are freelance accountants. They don't want to work for a boss. They want to have their own clients. And they service. So you're living in the time where you shouldn't be putting your shackles on your business by creating these fixed overheads that hang on you. I mean, Ipileng and I probably know all about it.
Yeah.
You even start getting stressed as the calendar moves closer to the 30th.
Yes.
Because you're thinking, I didn't make any money, but I got to pay all these fixed overheads.
Exactly.
Whereas if they were variable, and variable for those who might not know what we're talking about, let's say they're related to your revenue.
Yes.
Right?
Correct.
So the more revenue you make, those costs will increase. But also, if for every reason revenue is down, those costs would reduce.
Yes.
So if I'm doing a project and I need office space, I'm going to use a lot of office space. But remember, I have a project, which means I'm billing for it.
Yes.
But if for every reason I don't have a project, my teams don't have to be meeting, then I don't need office space. Whereas if I'd signed a 5-year lease like they used to do back in the day, whether there's a project or not, the landlord wants his rent.
And you're stuck.
Yeah, so just think through those things and try. The trucking business I made as an example.
Yes.
If indeed you score a contract, somebody just trusts you, you don't have to go and buy the truck. There are many leasing options.
Absolutely.
You might lose some margin because, yes, there's some things where if you own the thing, the capex, the unit cost is lower.
Yes.
Understood.
Yes.
But if you lease it, it's slightly higher. So give up a little bit of margin in the beginning. But remember, you got a good quality truck that you're hiring now because you're buying from a leasing company. And they've got an FML, which means this thing is proper quality. It works. It's not going to break down. And you don't have to worry about all those things.
That's it.
So you might lose a little bit of margin, right? Where the cost is a little higher. Do that a few times. Iterate after a while. Build that little kitty for yourself. And then when the numbers make sense, you can then say, all right, now I can see a line of sight on my contracts. I got longevity. I've now renewed my contract for 5 years. Maybe this one is a 1-year contract. So maybe now it makes sense for me to go and acquire, that truck because I can see the utility of it and I'm reducing the cost. But that's not where you have to start, which means you don't need the capital to buy the truck. Just get the contract and go at least one.
It's such a fundamental conversation, this part, because often we start with thinking that we are large. You're not. So Andile's kind of example is so well described, because it is as you build up your business, and I'm talking in 5-year kind of trenches or tranches, that you now can make those long-term fixed decisions, Cleola, that make sense to this long-term business, that now you're saying, well, you know, we are able to now look at the investment in capex that is long-term, because it is, as he correctly says, the cost of running that capex is far cheaper than leasing it. But when you're an SME and when you are now starting out in your first couple of years, it's just counterproductive, I think, to look at a business model that is really for an established or larger business that can take that kind of heavy load. So, you know, there is just so much that has changed in business that we actually should be utilizing those models all the time. And we should be thriving and driving businesses that are running from our homes, that are running using our networks, our phones, our connectivity, our ability to connect from wherever we want to be. And we are still able to trade, service people, deliver stuff, do whatever, without having moved from where you are.
Exactly.
Last point on that,
Yes.
which not many entrepreneurs will tell you, but I know that Dipuleng and I are happy to tell you this. You actually don't realize how much you don't know about any business you start. The variable model allows you to learn. So we all think we start big. We think we're big, must buy 10 trucks, right? You know what else we think? We think we know what we're doing. Here's the absolute truth. In fact, every business I've ever been involved in, it was only after a year, maybe 2, that I started really understanding
The lights start coming
what
on.
I'm really doing.
After the hard knocks.
And you know, everybody's going to tell you, I knew exactly what the plan was. Day one, I knew exactly how to do this. I knew No, the skeletons come only when you start. You never really know until you start.
Yes.
I don't know how else to say that.
Yes.
So a variable model allows you room to make mistakes because you can change things pretty quickly.
Yes.
Whereas if you start with big, fixed overheads, capex, debt, funding, loans, now it's hard. You can't quickly walk away, quickly change that because it's not variable. It's so fixed and it weighs down on you. So the other beauty of allowing flexibility is the truth that you actually don't know what you're doing. And you will only know after a while of doing it. And you will learn and you will make mistakes, you will get up. But they're not expensive. They're not that expensive mistakes because you can maneuver.
Yes.
When you are stuck, it's more expensive. And in fact, could lead to you giving up and walking away.
True, very true.
So I think the lessons are make sure the Wi-Fi you get is free. Right? So I want to go into just 2 more topics. The first one is just, again, and Andile, I'll ask you in terms of, because you spoke about commercial plan, right? And there's certain things such as, your planning in terms of pricing or your suppliers, and how do you negotiate those types of contracts in your financial planning? And again, it's commitment, right? That you're making, because if you're going to get someone to give you something, how do you think through those things and make sure that you always consider your price points, how you price, how you go in and make, if a company comes to you and says, oh, deliver this service, what is that type of considerations and the questions that you should be asking yourself?
I love the question and the discussion around pricing because I think it is another very important discussion that doesn't get enough attention. It is very difficult to make a GP loss-making business profitable. In fact, it's virtually impossible because in essence, you're selling something at a price lower than you're buying it for. So if you don't fix the pricing early, you going 1 step forward and 3 back every time. It's a lot easier to make a less profitable business more profitable. It's really hard to make a loss-making operation suddenly profitable. And you know where the problem is? Pricing.
Yes.
And pricing is only a function of 2 things.
Okay.
It's the price I'm able to charge and the cost I'm incurring. That's what it is. And in that environment, there's also 2 types of of products. There's products where you're a price taker. My favorite example is gold or platinum. We see it every day on the JSE. When the JSE closes, what happens? We get the indicators, right?
Yes.
We get told that gold is trading at X. Chief, whoever you are, anywhere in the world, that's the price. So your only way, if you're a gold operation, to make more money than the next guy is to manufacture or deliver that gold at a lower cost.
Yes.
Because the price is made by the market.
Exactly.
Gold is an easier one because everyone understands it. But there's many industries like that. A loaf of bread, a bottle of milk. There's only so much you can charge for it because it's a commodity.
Exactly.
So part of your strategy as an entrepreneur is to think, what business am I in? And to what extent can I influence price? Because you don't want to be in a price taker business. Because for obvious reasons, you're limited. You can't increase your price. So so ideally what you wish to be is in a business where you can influence your price by selling something that can be somewhat unique. You know, that the best people in the world when it comes to this are consultants. In any level of consultancy, a consultant can sell you a diagram, a strategy that he says, I wrote a book about this, it sold 1 million copies, I'm the smartest guy on this thing.
Yes.
Now you can't really compare that consultant with many others. You can say the last consultant charged me X, but I can argue that with my model, I can charge X plus plus. So the first thing you got to think about in the pricing conversation is, am I in an industry where we are price takers or are we price makers? The closer you are to the price maker side of that scale, the easier it is for you to influence price. The closer you are to the price taker, the harder it is. Because the price of gold is the price of gold, you understand?
Yes.
So the only way you can make more margin is to manufacture gold cheaper. So if you look at all the listed gold companies, that's all they ever talk about, the technology that they've now put in, how they've avoided fatalities in their mines, because the little trucks there, the little robots are the ones doing the digging. So if the thing falls, no one has to die. It's cheaper than labor, et cetera, et cetera. That's why countries like Australia mine at cheaper prices than we do. Because that's all they can compete on, is the cost.
Yes.
So you gotta think that through in your own business. And I don't think enough entrepreneurs actually think through their cost in relation to their price.
Yes.
And then, of course, you gotta actually make sure that when you do this calculation, selling price less cost price is equal to gross profit, you actually cater for enough of the costs. So, because many people leave out a lot of the costs.
Yes.
And there, you need to really think through what are your real costs, not just the obvious cost, right? So if I'm building a road, maybe the obvious cost is the asphalt and the grader and the labor. But there's other costs that are ancillary to this. I must make sure they're in there. So that when I look at my gross profit, they are real. It's a real gross profit. So it's an exercise I don't think is done often enough. And it's an exercise that starts at strategy, at business planning, not at the end. Because when I'm business planning, I'm either going to be the gold company or I'm going to be the management consultant. I'm either going to be on the one scale of price taking or price making. And there's no one who's perfect in each one, but just be aware of where you are. Because if you price yourself out of the market, what happens? We just don't buy your milk.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Because I can just go get next door and get the same milk at the right price.
Yes.
But if your milk is infused with something that only you grow, then I know that, you know what, if I want Ipileng herb-infused milk,
Organic
from her garden, I'm going to pay Ipileng's price because she's the only one who gives me that milk. So I know I'm oversimplifying, but it's about the principle of pricing, and I don't think entrepreneurs give it enough thought.
No, absolutely.
It's a science.
agreed.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Go for it. Sorry, Cleola.
No, it's fine. I absolutely agreed. And you know, the thing is that even as fuel increases, you don't think about those things. Insurance is going to increase. So where are you with your pricing and the details? The question, what you just pointed out, is really asking yourself the details, you know, of every little thing.
Exactly.
Working it out and saying, if I have to drive from point A to point B, that's a cost.
Absolutely.
Right? If I have
Absolutely.
to, you know, that's a cost. Every single thing
It's
is
a
a
cost.
cost.
And the worst
right?
part is the fuel is a great example. If you're closer to the price taking scale,
I mean, my goodness. You're off.
you're dead.
You did.
Because the cost of fuel just went up. Guess what? The market still wants to pay 100 rand
Yeah.
for whatever it is.
Yeah.
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 Which means you're giving up margin every time.
All the time.
Exactly.
So that's why this starts at strategy. That's why strategy is important. Because you can't find yourself here by mistake.
You can't. And I think that's why it's such an important distinction to make between the type of business you're going into. And to Andile's point, you know, if you're in a service business, what is the service that is better than the one next door?
Yes.
How are you able to influence that in order for that to be able to influence the relationship between the service quality and the price that he's prepared to pay for the service that you're giving, as opposed to whether it's a commodity or a tenderpreneur. I'm just going to be the less than him.
Yes.
You know, there really is nothing there other than the next guy is going to be less than you.
Exactly.
So you know, it's
Then it's a fight to the bottom.
it's a fight to the bottom, and it's a never-ending kind of, you know, spiral.
Yes.
And I suppose if you're going to be in business, you know, one of the decisions I made early was I'm going to be in business for the long haul. I'm not in this thing because I just want to be there. I'm in this because there are things that I want to do and achieve, but also impacts that you want to make. It then allows you to start saying, well, what is it that I want to do? And what's something that can take me through all these different cycles of things that happen? And therefore, what is the service and what's the passion that I love and blah, blah, blah. So everything Andile said is so critical because it comes back to that budget that you're putting in place and that pricing strategy. It comes down to segmentation of your market. It comes down to understanding. With that price that we're putting in, there's a Bentley service and then there's the Toyota.
Yes.
Who am I giving the Bentley service to? Who am I giving the Toyota? What's the volume here? These strategies can get so deep and they're so important because once you've got that, you have your business. You know, you really now can then start, putting it into action.
Introducing JSE Private Placements, the brand new state-of-the-art digital platform that smartly connects private companies with investors. If you're looking to raise debt, equity or pre-IPO funding for your company, or if you're an investor on the lookout for new investment opportunities, JSE Private Placements is the perfect one-stop platform for you. Powered by next-generation global fintech leader Globacap and driven by the JSE's deep understanding of the scaling up process, JSE Private Placements is revolutionizing the fundraising and investment world. Turn your blueprint into a reality with JSE Private Placements today. Register at jseprivateplacements.co.za. T's and C's apply.
Really amazing nuggets, and we have run out of time. So I'm going to ask for just, what are the last nuggets that you'd like to share? And Ipileng, I'm going to ask the nuggets, but also from a personal perspective as an entrepreneur. What is that thing that says this is going to hold you in good stead, in this journey? Because you've been on this journey for such a long time, and what's going to hold our entrepreneurs in good stead to be sustainable?
I think I spoke earlier about the contingencies. I want to draw on that from a personal perspective. Put back more in your business. So every time you make money, put that money back into your business. Okay? The focus for me of a business that is starting is not to be able to achieve the highest profits at the cost of the business. So what I mean by that, you're achieving these profits, real profits, and you're just taking out dividends. For me, the business that's going to last is the one that says, right, we could take out a dividend, we could take out 30%, 50%, all of it, or we could actually say, let's reinvest it. So reinvesting in your business in the early stages, 5 to 10 years, reinvest in it. It will pay you off over the long term because you will be able to put things into the business that you would never have done had you had the mindset from the beginning of saying, I'm just taking out money from the business. There are ways in which I think you will see exponential growth in your business. And I think at a personal level, I would say the same around how you manage your personal finances. And I think that really, I can't stress enough that business is not sexy. It's something that you need to love and you will kill yourself for. You'll lose the last whatever you have for, but you know that you're in it for the long haul.
And it's yours.
And it's yours.
Andile, closing remark?
I would say the one nugget, don't be a schmuck. What is a schmuck? A schmuck is somebody who doesn't respect people, somebody who can be idiotic, somebody who's pompous, somebody who's not nice to deal with, somebody who's not kind. Just like an all-round schmuck. Don't be that person. And I'll tell you why. People do business with people.
Yeah.
True.
People speak of you in rooms. You are not present.
Yeah.
That opportunity I keep talking about that you can get before the funding. People give you a shot because people go, wow, I met that Ipileng lady. And then the other person goes, no, actually, I've met her before as well. She's a friend of her. What a lovely person. Absolutely. Everybody agrees. That is your biggest asset when you start out. Because then people give you an opportunity. Because you're not a schmuck. So don't walk into a room. Don't go mistreat people. Don't think you've arrived. Just be kind. Be kind.
Yes.
Choose kindness.
Choose kindness every
As
day.
often as you
Over
can.
everything.
And
Wake up and be kind.
And keep hustling along.
Yes.
Somebody will give you the opportunity.
True that.
I'm pretty sure Ipileng will bail me out about just how people supported us. Suddenly I can tell you my career. For no reason other than they had a positive predisposition.
Absolutely.
They just enjoyed the short company. See, people who didn't even know me vouched for me. So, and I can tell you, most successful people started out that way. They get cocky later. But, you know, when you get cocky, you can't afford to be, because now you're a billionaire, right? You can be cocky all you want.
Yes.
But when you start out, don't
Be
be
humble.
schmuck. Please.
Powerful.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, there you've heard it from the horse's mouth. Don't be a schmuck. Thank you very much to our phenomenal entrepreneurs, Ipaleng Mkari and Andile Kumalo, who have shared so much and phenomenal insights with us today. And that is your Financial Planning 101.